All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 20 here of the Zyori Breakdown. Yet another episode. I know it's been quite a while since we've done a breakdown, so pumped up to have another one coming up for you guys. Today we are going to be doing a little Support 101. tradeMark eSports' very own Sender going to be joining us fresh out of Dreamhack home and, well, ready to teach us about some support action. So, as I said in that last vlog entry, we should have plenty more breakdowns coming. I've talked to a few different players about some different breakdown ideas. So today is the first of hopefully many breakdowns to come over the next couple weeks or so, at least until we run out of nice, fun, and exciting content. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and get straight into it here and introduce our guest, Mr. Sender. How are you feeling, sir?
Doing pretty good, even though Dreamhack was kind of like, we had a lot of fun, but it was a huge disappointment to us, to be honest. So,
yeah, I can imagine. You guys gunning for first place, of course, ending in fourth place. So that's sort of an unfortunate ending, I suppose. I guess it was Moon's first DreamHack, perhaps. I mean, what do you think where did you guys go wrong? What was the biggest struggle you guys faced at DreamHack?
Well, I don't think we were prepared enough. But even though we still could have won our games. And I think it was just maybe some bad plays all around that kind of lost it for us, or maybe not making the right plays would be to make the more sense.
Kind of. I can see where you're coming from, though. I mean, do you think there was one person in particular on your team that really struggled, or was it just a sort of the team atmosphere itself?
I would say everybody made their own mistakes that were key.
Well, that's not good, but I suppose better than... I've heard talks of some teams where the four members are really happy with their play, and there's the one guy that's kind of like, the fuck you were doing, man? Like, what are you thinking? So, but overall, I mean, what do you think about the event? Obviously, there were some scheduling issues and some other problems along the way, but overall, were you guys fairly satisfied with your experience at the event?
Oh, of course. Nothing could have been worse than last year.
I actually don't know much about last year's travesty.
Well, at least for my team. I mean, obviously it was pretty bad for Team It's Gosu, but like, so after the first day, we had to play like the round of 8 matchup, and then like the semis and third place matchup on 3 hours of sleep both nights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was happy with my 5 to 6.
Yeah, I can understand that. Team It's Gosu, man. That stuff was rough. I was pretty upset when I was reading that all those forum posts about how they're terrible people and how their sponsors should drop them and they have no sportsmanship. And I'm just like, wow, you guys really don't understand what this event was like at all. It was just really more stressful than I think people are giving Team It's Gosu credit for. But it seems a lot of that's died down. So that's definitely good news. So. I want to talk about support today. That's going to be the name of the game, of course. And before we get too deep into it, and while we're on the DreamHack note, I actually got the chance to talk to Nova for quite some while on day 3 when we were waiting for Mid-War stuff to get started. And he actually was talking about the Orange eSports support player, XXF, and talked about how...
No, that's their carry player.
Yeah, he found... Wait, pardon?
That's their carry player.
Is it? Well, he was talking about XXF as one of their better players, and he also mentioned whoever was playing Glacius in one particular game. The two of them complemented each other really well. Who was their support player then?
Shuyu.
Fuyu or Shuyu?
Shuyu. I don't know much about him, but like the Malaysians consider him like one of the top 5 supports in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
What does he do that's so special?
I don't really know. I think he's good at warding, but I don't really know other than that. It's not like I follow Orange a lot. I mean, I know a little bit about them, but I don't know a ton.
Well, how was it when you guys went head-to-head against them in the group stage?
I mean, as a mechanics basis, I can tell that like Shuyu has really sick mechanics. Like I was watching him play some mid wars, and he just like always made the right plays.
Even in mid wars, pulling out the big plays.
Yeah, man, that's where you get to see all the big plays. It's not really the mind stuff. It's like all the like what can you do in the video game physically.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So, but I guess just to bring up that point, that I have heard good things about Orange Esports and some of their support players. And as well, before this game, we were waiting on your in-house match, obviously, trying out lockpicking. So, what do you think about it? How do you like the new lockpicking phase, which did launch today?
I mean, I think there's definitely some downsides to it, but I think it's pretty cool. Once some of the heroes get balanced out, or maybe it gets revamped a little bit in the future, I'm liking it.
What would you say is like your biggest concern about the drafting format?
I just feel maybe there's too many powerful heroes that get through the banning phase and into like the picks.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I know after DreamHack there was some feedback from a couple of different players talking about how right now the game itself is a little bit boring just because the nature of which heroes are really good and which heroes are really bad. Do you think sort of forcing more super powerful heroes into the pool could kind of force a little bit of a change in the metagame, maybe force a more aggressive playstyle?
I don't think it's heroes at all. It's just I don't. I mean, I don't think we need to add new heroes. I just think we need to bring some heroes down, bring some heroes up. Maybe like fix like things like tower, like glyphing towers and porting in,
Hmm.
fixing Storm Spirit. Maybe adding new items. But I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's how I would fix Han if I was if I was Dog Kaiser. I'd be like, let's nerf some heroes. Maybe bring a few up. Nerf Storm Spirit, and then like do something about towers, and then make some new cheap team fight items, and Han would be amazing. That's how Sender would do it. Lead balancer.
You want more nerfs on the storm? Dude, Storm Spirit got the nerf bat shoved up his ass and then
Nah,
like twisted a little bit.
it's the thing is it doesn't matter. Like it's
Still too
like
good. Imba
yeah.
Imba.
I mean, you saw like our game against Fnatic with what they did with Storm Spirit on their mage bane. That item didn't exist. Like we would have killed him several times.
Yeah,
Like if it didn't exist in how the way it does, definitely could have killed that guy a couple of times.
I actually know exactly which game you're talking about. That was a really interesting match. That was one of those games that had like a 3-4 hero score at like the 30-minute mark, and yeah, they farmed up 2 Storm Spirits and got their Mage Bane super tanky, and you just straight up like he's just like immune to burst damage. Anytime
Yeah.
burst comes, you just Storm Spirit him.
The my biggest gripe with Storm Spirit is the fact that they had like most of their team had like 200 GPM for most or for a lot of the game,
Hmm.
and then they still had the like one item they needed to protect their main carry who had all the farm.
Right. So how would you propose nerfing Storm Spirit?
I have two ideas. One is either making it so it's like a luxury item that costs costs like 5,000 gold, but you buff up the stats, of course. You don't like take
Hmm.
the current Storm Spirit and just make it 5,000 gold. You make the stats better. Or the other change would just be like make it only usable on enemies.
Hmm. Yeah, and of course that is the big debate, the difference between Dota and Han, whether it should be a sort of a defensive item or if its primary use should be much more offensive, and that's of course one of the problems with it. But I would tend to agree. I mean, at least now with the increase in cost that it got a little while ago, we don't see it nearly as much as we used to. I remember seeing 5-6 Storm Spirits every single game.
I think it's more of like the strategy you're running. Before the item was just so good that it didn't matter. It was good in every situation
Hmm.
because like there was no negatives to having a Storm Spirit. But now its offensive capabilities have turned down a ton. So the negatives are it's really only better in defensive style strategies.
Hmm.
Unless you're against like a hero like Tundra, like a lot of single target, then
Hmm.
obviously it's still good in a defensive strategy. But I think it's best in defensive strategies. So
I see.
stuff like Fnatic is running.
I see. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It definitely fit into that game very, very nicely. As far as the lock picking is concerned, though, where do you think that's going to take support picking? I mean, right now we're seeing the same supports kind of over and over. I mean, Aluna and Glacius were probably the most popular picks in DreamHack, if not top 3 or 4. Do you think
Well,
lock picking is going to change that a little bit?
I don't really think Aluna and Glacius are gonna hit the banning pool ever again.
All right.
Probably not. They might hit like I think they'll get into locks a lot maybe because people want to pick their supports early on in the actual picking phase
Hmm.
so they can like hide their strat. Well, I don't know. There's a couple of different ways to take this. Okay, so you can either lock the support. So if you lock the supports and not lock the carries that you want to pick,
Hmm.
you're not showing your hand until the picking phase. So then they can't really counter your carries as easily. Whereas if you lock pick the carries, the opponents kind of know what you want to go for.
Hmm.
So I think in strategies where people don't want the opponents to know what they're going for, you'll probably see like the supports locked, and then the carries or the key heroes like picked in the actual picking phase.
Hmm.
Maybe if a team really wants a hero, they'll lock pick it if they have like the first pick or something like that. But
Right.
yeah, that's just my opinion.
No, I mean that makes sense. Right now, that sort of fits into some of the theory crafting behind just the banning pick phase right now with putting. I mean, fairly often we see supports picked up first because of the same reason, like you're saying. You know, it's easier to not give away your strategy if you pick those hard carries last or your wild cards last, and you know, pick up your fairly generic supports to start things off. Picking up Glacius is not really indicative of any particular strategy, so I think that makes sense. And along those same lines, what is it about Aluna and Glacius that make them great supports? Because I think from a lower player's perspective, it can be a little bit confusing as to why those two heroes and why we don't really see like support Pyromancer or support Torturer so often. What is it about those particular support heroes that we see over and over again that make them just so good at that role?
Well, the thing with Aluna is Aluna and Glacius are like really utility. They can be put in any lane pretty much. Like Aluna can even put on like a farming role, you know. So, and then they're strong laners with that, and they have so they're strong laners. They fit on almost any lineup. They have long ranged abilities, and they do a fairly amount of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the other supports, like Andro, who is obviously one of the best like defensive lineup supports, and even like pushing to an extent. But the thing is, he's a weak laner, and he does have some ranged abilities, which is nice. And Nymphora, obviously, is more of like he's just Nymphora. Everyone knows what he does. He's really good at like making people scared and picking people off. So those are the top 4 supports. But
and what about Demented Shaman? Where does he fit into all that?
Well, I think people start to realize Demented Shamans can fit in a support role, but I think he's better in a solo laner because like if you pick, because with bubbles and like other initiators being so popular, it's kind of hard for Demented Shaman to use spells as effectively as a support role. Mm-hmm. You can be picked off more easily.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Someone in chat saying as well, what about Plague Rider? I mean, that's a hero that used to be banned first pick material, and
that's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, Plague Rider just totally fell off the deep end.
And like Plague Rider doesn't really have as much presence as other heroes. Like if say the early game doesn't go how you want it to go with Demented Shaman and Plague Rider, you can't really adjust as much. Like you can't really go ganking, or your lanes are kind of stagnant. Whereas if you take heroes like Andro, Glacius, Aluna, you can go roaming because they have good burst potential, good stuns.
Mm-hmm. I see. So I guess it just comes down to versatility. Like you said, Aluna and Glacius have that ability. All right, this lane isn't working out. Let's shift, and then you have a whole lot more options. And I think the replays we're going to look at kind of speak to that, because in both games, when you play Aluna and Glacius, you spend a pretty good amount of time roaming as well as sometimes static in the lane. So I think that's definitely a good point. And Nymphora is a hero I wanted to talk about a little bit too, because throughout DreamHack, she was one that we saw banned a lot, but actually not picked up all that much. Sort of that weird, disproportionate allocation of how much she was used. Why is that? I mean, is it just that she fits into specific lineups so well if she has one of those deadly lane partners like Fade or Armadon or one of those others, Pebbles, Behemoth, what have you? Or is it just the ultimate? I mean, what is it about her that makes her ban-worthy but not always pick-worthy?
I think my favorite Nymphora lineup I've ever seen was the one that Team Gosu ran, which was like Silhouette and Armadon with Nymphora. And what we were trying to do our split pushing strategy, where we get ahead by taking towers, maybe getting some pickoffs, and eventually pushing base. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, they said like Silhouette, he'd push up a lane, and then go to the jungle. So it's kind of hard to gank him. And then they would have Armadon in the other lane, who would just sit in front of the tower. And then you can't really jump on him because you can't burst him down. And then those TP and the Nymphora ports, and it just won't end up well for you. So, I don't know. That's just one strategy I liked a lot with them. But I think maybe people just didn't want to run Nymphora. Like maybe they had something else going in mind for them. Whereas like the people that were banning him were just afraid of playing against it. But like when it was not banned, maybe the other team just didn't want to run it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, definitely it comes down to preference. But, I mean, is it... I tend to say that the ultimate is one of the big things that people are afraid of just because it's so hard to counter. A good Nymphora is going to find those positions to, port incognito and then end up in the trees and just pair with somebody with a portal key. Just that surprise burst potential is really hard to deal with. You can pick heroes like Tundra for that additional scouting that help, but that still isn't really a true hard counter. I mean, is that some of it? All of it? Just a sliver?
I mean... I think Tundra really is the only real counter to him, and I would say I think Nymphora just became so popular all of a sudden is because of the style of the game. It started to become more passive, and like Nymphora is actually pretty weak until he gets like some levels on him, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can crush your opponents in the early game, Nymphora is kind of useless. Like his pod doesn't really do that much until it's leveled, and the same thing with his other skills.
Hmm.
So maybe the best way to beating Nymphora would just be going for like that super like Navi style, take all towers by 15 minutes, and then you just crush them and they can't do anything.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see that making sense. And you're right. That's a good point. Nymphora is sort of a I don't know the right word. Not like a later game support. Like she definitely peaks a little bit later than some heroes early on. So and I guess to start to wrap up some of the hero discussion here, do you have any thoughts on Riftwalker? I had somebody ask about once Riftwalker is introduced into tournament play. I mean, have you played that hero at all? Familiar with the
Well,
abilities and that stuff?
when I heard the fact that they put Darkseer's vacuum in Han, I was a little peeved. Like that's one spell that has no business being in any game. But,
So, I mean, do you think that hero's going to have a big impact on the competitive scene when she's released?
I mean, I saw her some mid wars. I don't really know how she would fit into the competitive scene, what role she would play, but I definitely think she has a lot of potential.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely an interesting hero. That when I read that, I had to read over her abilities a little bit. I was like, all right, I could see how this could be interesting, but maybe for those kind of niche lineups, but we'll have to see. So. Now I want to talk about just sort of some generic support things. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is very situational, based on what your hero lineup is, what hero you're playing, and what you're up against. But just sort of keep in the back of your mind, we're sort of talking to 1,400, 1,500, even low 1,600 people interested in kind of doing that solo queue support, if you will. Probably individuals that don't really have much of a team, and if they do, it's more just a group of friends than any kind of a serious team. What would be sort of your top piece of advice to that kind of player who really is just all about support, but is finding themselves struggling a little bit in solo queue games where their carries might not know exactly what to do, their lane partners might be a little bit clueless? Any recommendations?
That's a pretty open-ended question.
It is. Do you have? Well, is there any one thing that comes to mind before I get more specific? I suppose.
Let's see.
One thing you've noticed noobs doing very frequently, is it particular that they just don't know how to ward, maybe particular that bad positioning, or is this just a totally loaded question that needs to be moved on from?
Okay, I got one. I got one.
Okay.
Never let yourself get too gimped that you're useless. You should always take some farm.
Okay, that's definitely a good point, and that'll transition nicely. And because I wanted to ask you something about general support theory crafting early on, because I've talked to Era in the carry 101 that I did, and he said one thing that Fnatic Recall does is they allow their supports to pick up the early kills almost purposefully. If they're going for a Bloodlust, they're going to try to give it to their Aluna or Andromeda, and from their perspective, they say, well, our carry's going to get farm regardless. We know Mage Bane's going to get farm throughout this game. So our supports need that extra bit of money early on when they're not, picking up those creep kills. Do you guys do the same thing on tdM, or are you guys sort of the opposite, where it's all about just getting that needed farm on the carries?
I think it depends. Like if you're running like a super like hard carry, I don't know. I just take it game to game. Like it depends say if you're like the lanes are clashing and your carry really needs the farm, then you should probably give it to him, give him a head start.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like a free farm situation and you're just like killing their suicide hero, I think there's nothing like it's really nice for support to just get like 2-minute boots and then he's able to like roam the map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, and that's true. It is sort of situational. What about times? Well, actually, never mind. So yeah, I guess that does make sense. And along that situation, or along that line, I want to talk about warding as well. A lot of this, and that's one of the things once we get into the replays, I think we're going to spend a lot of time looking at. But in both games, I kind of noticed you always start out with the two wards, and almost every game it goes the pull and then a rune ward. Is that pretty much the way to go to start things off in the beginning of a game?
I would say that's the standard way.
The standard way. Well, what are some other options if that's, or what would be a scenario where that's not the standard?
You think the other team's gonna do some heavy roaming, so you give up either like the pull ward because you think they're gonna have like a solo down there, or you like give up the rune ward and then you like ward somewhere in your jungle that you know the opponents won't counter ward, so you know if they're like ganking where their supports are on the map.
Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, it's the pull ward as well as the rune ward are the most valuable.
Yeah, usually.
And along with that, with sort of starting items, starting wards, how do you guys decide who ups the courier and who buys the wards? Are there ever situations where you guys have the same person buy both wards as well as the upgraded courier to start at the very beginning of the game?
If we have a War Beast, that'd be like the only situation we ever do that. Or maybe like Wild Soul.
Why with War Beast or Wild Soul?
Because they're in the jungle and they need their items. So like, say if we really need that chicken upgraded, I might like maybe I'll upgrade the chicken, get a ward or two, and then like cut back on some other items. Like get like maybe one miner totem and then like Tango and a mana pot. That's probably what I would do.
I see. So only in those very specific situations. Pretty much every other time, though, your secondary support or whatever you want to call it will help out early. I mean, in a pub game, is that ever a good idea to spend all that early money on a courier and wards, or in a situation like in a solo queue scenario, if you have to choose one over the other, which is more important to start stuff off?
Well, there's nothing wrong with gaming yourself on the early regen and items if it's going to be like a 2v1 lane, because then you can just get it from your lane mate. But it's really not that favorable if you're going to be like 2v2 or 3v3. Because you're obviously going to want all that extra regen.
Right. Yeah, for the non-stop harassing as well. Okay, well, like I said, we'll take a look into the replays here, and I have a few more generic questions, but now that I'm looking at them, it might be easier just to get into the games and sort of take it as it comes, I suppose, and transition into these questions. So, if you don't mind, good sir, I think we can go ahead and take a look at the first game with Aluna.
Okay.
All right. So I have it loaded up, sitting at about 215 on the replay counter.
I'm there too.
Okie dokie, so let's see here, and here we are. Just give me one moment. Alright, so we can go ahead and press play here in 3, 2, 1, go. So I left this replay here in the very beginning of the picking phase, and hopefully it goes by pretty quickly. Just to sort of give some frame of reference, of course, this is one of the Dreamhack games. This is tdM versus Team GA from the group stage, and you can see the bands here all pretty normal: Silhouette, Magnus, Silhouette, Meraxis, Parasite, Polywog Priest, Bubbles, Pebbles, Tundra, and Magebane. And they actually first picked Glacius here, and as we can see by you guys right-clicking Aluna and Magnus, those will be your first two picks, I do believe. So, Sender, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about these bands and these initial picks?
Well, we know they like Polywog Priest a lot, so we're not going to give them that. And we just banned some of the strong heroes like Magnus and Pebbles, and just don't want to deal with Magebane. And then the picks, we're just going for strong lanes because we know we can beat them if we just don't get beat early, you know? So that's pretty much it.
I see. Makes sense. So they go Glacius first pick and Aluna Magnus. And we can actually just go ahead and let's go up to ×4 here and just sort of scoot through this so we can get into the game. But you end up playing Aluna, of course. And in a situation like this where you guys have Aluna and Magnus together, I guess, how do you break down who plays super hard support and who doesn't? I mean, is this going to be one of these games where you're both going to be roaming around? Is one of you going to be warding more so than the other? One going to be more focused on farm than the other? How do you balance those two support heroes?
Usually on our team, I buy all the wards unless I have an item coming, or usually if I see he has boots and I don't have boots, you'll buy a couple wards, or if I'm close to an item, I'll buy a couple wards, or I just don't have any money. But other than that, I just usually buy all the wards and sentries.
So it's more of a one-person support style almost.
Yeah.
And then I guess you allow that secondary support to try and actually pick up some farm. I guess with a hero like Magnus, that makes sense as well, so we can start working towards those core items, of course, the portal key and all those other things young Magnus players have come to love and enjoy in this day and age. So just about to start the game here. Once we get into the game, we can take it back down to ×1, and we can go ahead and do that just about right now as I'm loaded into the game. Oh god, and of course, silly.
There's a pause.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, do you not have auto pause on? Auto skip?
No, I don't. What's it?
Alright, hold the phone. We're going to pause the show. I have it right. Do you have the code handy? Because I can look it up real fast.
No, I don't have the code.
Alright, hold up. I got you, bro. I got your back. Alright, here you go. Throw this bad boy in the command console. Sender, where do you live?
Minnesota.
Is it warm there right now? Because I am sweating my ass off.
Pretty nice, though.
It is so hot in New Jersey. There are people at my house swimming in the pool, and I am in my room just like dripping sweat.
God, what a nerd, man.
I know. I feel like such a gross nerd right now. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right, so do you have your do you have it activated?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so where are you at right now?
1 minute in game time.
1 minute in game time. All right,
yep.
let me jump ahead and get on your level here. Okay, so let's go ahead and press play in... Oh, switch this overlay. Go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. And we'll just lower that bad boy down. So, you know, we're going to do this pretty straightforward here. I'm pretty much just going to lock my camera onto you, Mr. Sender, playing this Aluna. And, well, we can just kind of take a look at what you do step by step throughout this game. So, starting things off, I want to ask about your starting items, of course. You do have your 2 wards there. Your
That's a mistake.
Huh?
I accidentally forgot to buy a mana pot. You'll see me buying one later.
Okay, so yeah, your 1 mana pot, 2 runes of blight, 1 health potion, and then your 2 minor totems. So everything else the same. You would have just preferred another mana potion here.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And of course, you see you coming down here, throwing down this ward to block the pull. And is this kind of the ideal ward location for doing this such thing as far as maximizing sight in the jungle as well as being able to actually block the camp?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Well, I mean...
No, I'll explain. So, in your opinion, what's an ideal ward?
Well, one that the main portion of this ward is to block the pull. That's the reason why it's here. So with that, it makes sense to maximize the amount of vision it gives you. So with these 2 camps, you can see if this jungler is going to, or if there's someone in the jungle that's going to come by into the lane. It gives you vision to this access point here near the bottom rune. It just gives you overall vision, but also achieves the blocking that you're looking for.
See, in my opinion, most of the time an ideal ward is one that doesn't get countered.
Okay. So is that what this ward down here achieves?
No, not really. It's just a good vision ward for the early game.
Alright, so you do pick up that mana potion, as you mentioned, and headed towards the top. So you throw down this ward. Why did you opt to ward the top rune spawn instead of the bottom?
Just because that's where we put our tri-lane. We wanted some more control over in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, vision is what gives people control over a game. It's how we make our decisions. Without it, we can't really. We are limited to decisions we can make.
I see. All right. I just curious. I mean, is that if you didn't have the tri-lane style up here, would that have been a rune for the bottom lane? Is there any sort of is one side better than the other because of imbalances in the map or anything like that?
It's just really what you think your opponents are going for, or like what you're going for. Like, I don't know. It's just like if in this game we're top, but like sometimes like a ward the side we aren't laning in. So when we're checking the rune, we know what rune they get.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's game to game.
I see. So talk to us a little bit about the strategy that you guys are going for in this game, given this lineup. You know, we talked about sort of tri-lane here. We see Magnus really having Valkyrie pushed back. And, of course, Forsaken Archer basically free farming in lane. What's the mindset in a game like this where you guys have this sort of pseudo tri-lane, but they're just suiciding Valkyrie? So, obviously, the tri-lane isn't really needed, and that's part of the reason why you're not spending so much time in the lane. What's the general strategy that you're going to be trying to employ here as Aluna?
Well, I think we're just trying to pick a solid lineup. I'm not actually a fan of this lineup, but you know, we just like I said earlier, we'll just like not get behind early, and then we'll just play better than them. That was kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, on a more micro level, what is your plan? Obviously, you're still level 1, 2 minutes in, not spending any time in the lane. You stack twice in the jungle now as you sort of head towards the lane, throw a little power throw harass, maybe pick off this archer. I mean, is this one of these games where your ideal scenario is just the stack, so Forsaken Archer can pick up those camps? How do you judge how much time you spend in the jungle stacking versus how much time you spend in the lane?
Well, in the early game, it's about so keeping the opposing 2 heroes out of experience range, that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing would be controlling runes. and after that would be stacking and ganking.
Okay.
And in this case, I like to double stack the pull because they don't ward it right away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and given that it's, well, I guess you don't know that it's warded yet, so I guess, well, never mind for that. So, and
No, they warded it like 3 minutes in.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So at this point, like you said, rune control. You're going to throw down a counter ward here. Just any particular reason for that counter ward? Just in case they have, is sort of assuming they're going to have a ward at the top lane.
Actually, I saw Glacius ward, but I guess I'm just bad and I didn't know placing it there when not counter his ward. I thought that where my ward was, I'd get vision of his ward, but I didn't. So I guess I learned something in there.
Oh yeah, I see. It's over on the side. So there you go. Like you said, the ideal ward is one that is not easily counterable. So I suppose people can fly here, executing some good ward placement.
Well, I'll give you some more strategy insight. This the first game. This was our first game, and I knew we could beat these people. And I know like people give me a lot of props for my warding. So I was like, I'm gonna do the most standard warding that I can ever do, and then I'll just mix it up in the next couple of games.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So you're employing some of the sender mind games here.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So was it a mission successful?
I suppose so. I mean, the ward got countered. It's.
All right. Well, good to hear. Good to hear that confidence. So, as far as your frequency at buying wards, take us through some of the economics here. How do you balance when to buy wards and when to save up for, your power supply or your boots or some of those other core items, and even that first big item, whether it's a tablet or an astrolabe or something like that. And I guess also talk to us about this counter ward here up at the pole. How did you know that was the right place to counter ward?
Because I saw him go in there. Like maybe I didn't actually see him placing it, but I knew how long it took him, and that's pretty much all I needed to know.
I see.
If it took him longer to ward it, then it means he has to go up further, up more of the hill.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, that's good to know actually. And then this ward here as well, up at the top line on this little peninsula here. Talk to us about that location. Why is that an advantageous spot to place a ward here 5 minutes in?
It gives the most vision of all the lane wards, and I just don't want him getting ganked. And they have heroes like Chipper and Monkey King, so they have a lot of burst potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be relatively easy to kill an FA if he doesn't have vision.
Right. Okay.
And also, that was one of my standard wards.
That was one of my standard wards. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I placed. I might have placed that later in the tournament, but not as often as I normally do.
Okay, I see. It makes sense. And the natural thing that always comes to mind, and to be perfectly honest, still surprises me whenever I'm watching these high-level games. How do you balance your level in a game like this, where you have a successful tri-lane, or you kind of have this free-farming Forsaken Archer? I'm hesitant to call it a tri-lane, but that's basically what it is here. You're only level 2 6 minutes in, so obviously, you're butter. I guess you could say your balanced out Valkyrie who's sitting level 2, and their Glacius is actually still level 1, so he's obviously struggling quite a bit. But how do you balance that being underleveled with picking up a little bit of farm, as you were talking about in sort of the pub scenario, where don't be afraid to take a little bit of that early farm? What is an appropriate benchmark, let's say, for what level you should be at in a game like this?
I wouldn't say there's a benchmark. I mean, I'd say level 3 is fine in a game that played out like this. But obviously I will need to catch up in levels, and I probably will at some point take a lane to farm boots or something like that. Mm-hmm. When my carries like leaving the lane, or I'll go jungle or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there was that triple stack at the pole right there, and I noticed that time you were actually the one to take it out. Is it ever the situation where, Forsaken Archer, the carry in the lane, is going to come over and pick that up and you get to stay in the lane, or is it generally going to be the support that clears that stack? Because if it wasn't for that stack, that was kind of the source of your leveling a little bit of farm that you picked up.
It's usually for the support, but say if the carry can't farm the lane, and maybe that's usually when you'll see a carry take that, but it's usually the support that farms it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. That's good to know as well. Makes sense. But that always boggles my mind, seeing players like Nova every so often in a game where he's just kind of like this game actually. It's 10 minutes in and he's like a level 1 Glacius and all he's done is stack. And they have a jungle full of triple stacks, but I mean, he's on like static gold farm and has absolutely jack shit for items. And it always makes me just nervous that he's going to get caught one time and just start falling behind and be completely useless. But alas, that's very rarely the case. I mean, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get at is how do you find that balance? I mean, to someone who's struggling as a new support player that's looking to find that balance, is there anything in particular that you can suggest to making that workable?
Well, I would say just as a support player, like just always try to be useful in some like. If you're not being useful, then you're not doing your job. If you can be useful in many ways by setting up kills, stacking, controlling lane, warding, counter warding, baiting, stuff like that.
Right, and I actually really want to clarify on something you just brought up, which is, like you said, helping to get lane control. What exactly does that mean to someone who's maybe a little bit confused by that terminology?
Don't keep your opponents out of experience range if you can. Just keep the lane close to your tower. Deny the creeps. Blah blah blah. Don't push it out.
And what's the best way to do that? Is it all just about harassing that hero back? Is it about denying? How?
If it's like a 2v1, it's about just like harassing them outside the lane, harassing them with your spells. Don't fuck up lane control when you carry CSing. Like don't pull the range creep. Stuff like that.
All right, very good indeed. So in this game right here, obviously you're roaming around quite a bit. How are you balancing the amount of roaming and amount of time stagnant farming in the lane? Now we're about 9.5 minutes in, and you're actually finally starting to spend some time in the lane and pick up a couple of creep kills here in the mid. Why is that now? Is that just because this lane is open and there's no one here to farm it, or how are you balancing those two aspects of playing support here?
Because no one is farming the lane and I need some levels. That's pretty much it. And also, it's like the time when like Trelf wants to go around starting to pick up kills.
Oh right, yeah, Deadwood. I forgot. I actually haven't seen this game all the way through. I've looked at the replay from your perspective, but I totally ignored everything else. I had forgotten that you guys ran Deadwood. So obviously, poor Sender going to get caught out here at the 10-minute mark. So it's going to make you 1-2-1. But you know, all that aside. Talk to us about item choices for Aluna in particular. Is there a general build that you tend to follow? I mean, is it about Tablet of Command, Astrolabe? What set of boots do you normally go for once you upgrade past those red boots?
I mean, that's a problem I've really been having with Han in general, is the fact that there's not really that many cheap support items that you can buy in this game. And that's been my biggest gripe. And usually you want Astro like early on, but unless you have like a billion towers and you have a really good head start, that's really not like gonna happen for a support player. So usually we tend to get our second support to get that item, because it's actually really useful if you can get it at the prior 15-minute mark, 20-minute mark. And that's just not going to happen on a support 90% of the time.
So I mean, are there like particular items in Dota that come to mind that you really like that they've implemented for early support?
Well, it doesn't even need to be the items, it just needs to be the cost and like what they do. They just need to be useful, that they're cheap. Those are the two big things.
Sort of like more items, kind of like Hellflower, where all the sum of its parts are all very useful along the way.
No. I mean, like there's like in Dota they have like an item called Urn that when you're near kills, you get a charge and you can put it on an ally or an enemy and it either heals them or deals damage. Stuff like that. It helps team fight. You can do more damage, or you can like stay in the fight because you can heal your teammates. Or things like there's an item that does -6 armor for 1,000 gold. That's pretty big too. It's just stuff that's cheap but effective.
I see. So from a support player's perspective, that's what Han is lacking now. As far as super initial items, though, is it always red boots kind of into power supply? Is that your foolproof starter here for items?
Like, it's usually power supply. Unless I get a good start, it's usually mana battery into boots, into magic armor, into power supply, and then maybe like something like a bracer. Well, I guess now with the new patch, since you can actually buy what's that item?
Grave Locket.
Grave Locket. It'll probably just be like buying like a Amulet of Exile pretty early on for stats. So I guess that's pretty good for support players, but that's something to buy, but it still doesn't fix my gripe of we need something that helps the team. It just more like helps yourself.
Right. Yeah. That's certainly true. And again, as far as wards are concerned, are you buying wards pretty much every time they're up off cooldown, or is it a balance between, all right, now I'm going to save for my boots? You know, at what point do you say, all right, I'm going to stop buying wards now and save up for my red boots, or I'm going to stop buying wards now and save up for my striders or whatever? When
It's
do
really
those points
more
come?
like, do we need vision on the map, or like if we need wards because our wards are gonna run out, then I'll buy wards. But on money, I'll ask the teammate to buy wards. Or if like I need to buy an item, that's the same thing. I'll ask someone to buy it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like some games, like say there's a lot of fighting early on, I'll have wards and we'll keep fighting and we're fighting. I just never have a chance to place them. And then the wards restock, and 3 minutes later, where there's full inventory of wards, but I still have 3 wards on me. It doesn't mean I need to buy new wards; it just means I need to place them. So yeah.
I see. Yeah. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy. One of the many gripes I have with my current living status sender, I hate dogs.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So you know, you're definitely right. Again, more good stuff to point out here. And looking at my notes for this game, I don't have too many other questions here for Aluna in particular. One of the last things I wanted to ask about was just the skill build. Here you're going 2-3-1 or 2-3-0-1, I guess I should say. You know, level 2 stun, level 3 power throw. When do you pick up Deja Vu, and is this just a pretty standard skill build for Aluna? Do you ever switch it up in certain situations?
I always get Deja Vu at level 8. Most players get Deja Vu at level 4, but honestly, I believe that's a mistake. Because when you get your Emerald Lightning from level 1 to level 2, it bounces one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually really huge. Because, like, if you stun the creep, then it'll be more likely to stun a hero. And then for every, like, enemy it hits, that's another 600 range that your spell has.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when it's a level 2 stun, it's an 1800 range stun. If you get lucky.
Right. Yeah, well, I can definitely understand that. I mean, we've seen plenty of times in the early game when that level 2 Emerald Lightning does some work, so I think you make a good case. It just adds to the burst potential as well, like you said earlier on, that kind of versatility of Aluna. And there you go, picking up your Bracer, and I guess, does that Bracer just always end up transitioning into Astrolabe? Is that kind of the way that goes?
Well, so if we have something like, in this particular game, we don't really have, like, an Astro hero, so, like, it goes to me. Like, but say if we have, like, a Tempest, or, like, a Tree, or, like, more of, like, a semi-support intelligence hero, like a Torturer, or, like, a Luna, they'll usually get, like, the Astrolabe.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, not like a semi-support, but, like, a solo supporting. So, like, they're in a solo lane, they're getting the levels, but they're also getting the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So those are usually the heroes that get Astro. So, but in this case, we don't really have a jungler or like a good second support that'll buy one, so it falls to me.
I see. Well, that certainly makes perfect sense. Any other thoughts you have about Aluna in general? Tips for aspiring young Aluna players? Anything that I didn't cover that is important to note so far in this match?
I mean, it's just really plain support. It's the same for almost any hero. It's just Aluna is really powerful because of the range of her spells. It allows, like, unlike other support heroes, like I was talking about, like Glacius and Andro, is just that she has really good range. Like, you can keep yourselves out of the fight, but you're still have the presence of being in the fight. That's what's so good about her.
Yeah. Of course, having that global presence as well, just for added DPS all over the map, as we see. Pretty much every gank opportunity, Aluna's chucking those red power throws. So you're definitely... What was that?
It's just like the range on the power throw makes it so much easier to set up kills for the extra damage, or to just, like... So many times I'll be playing a support hero and be like, oh, I really want to help the team in the team fight, but like... And then I overcommit and I die and I didn't even do anything. Where if I just waited, you know, maybe I could have done something, but I was just being impatient. Except with Aluna is you can just cast your shit with no worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, that's pretty much what we were saying on stream as far as why Aluna's being, picked so much throughout DreamHack, and I mean, even banned both games in the finals because she's, been growing in popularity, and for all those reasons that we just covered. So, I think that will do it for replay number 1, and we are going to move into our next game here coming up in just a second. So. Coming up next, we're going to be looking at Glacius. And actually, turn this light on here. There we go. Glacius replay coming up next, Mr. Sender.
Yeah, I'm downloading it. What is this game? I don't remember.
Let's see, which game is it? That's a good question.
Is this a scrim that we won?
It might be.
I think it is. We lost to Free in the tournament. And that was definitely not the heroes, but that's okay.
I think it actually was from a scrim. But
yeah, it is. Okay.
Well, I mean, if that's a problem, we can always find another
No,
one.
it's not a problem. Besides, you get to see more of our wonderful Sandray strategy now.
How do you feel about Sandwraith, by the way?
I don't know, we should have won the one game we played him. I like him, actually. I won't say, like, I'll just pick him every game, but I just think he's a strong hero. He's also pretty good against heroes like Dark Lady.
Mm-hmm.
Because you actually can see what's going on in the fight.
Yeah. I like Sandwraith. One of my faves.
I think he fits into our playstyle a lot because we like to set up early kills without overcommitting to fights, and you know, it's always easy just to have an extra hero just be there.
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna jump ahead here. I'm trying to get to like 0-0 in the replay counter. Or like a minute in.
Okay.
Maybe like 1 minute on that countdown before creeps spawn.
Oh, you mean in-game timer?
Yeah. I think we can skip the drafting for this.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I can talk about it if you want to, but...
I wish the replay counter had like little benchmarks on it or something.
Oh, I remember this game.
Alright, I'm at 119 here in the in-game timer, counting down, if that works for you.
Oh, okay. What are we gonna do, like ×2 or like ×1 or what's it do?
We can do ×1 to start things off and talk about
I'm ready.
About some of the hero selections and stuff. It's 7:28 on the actual replay control.
Yep, I'm there.
Okay, so let's go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. So here we are. So this game, I believe, is just a scrim. Both teams are actually in Sweden, like day before Dreamhack, grinding at the LAN centers. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're in Game Heaven, the AKA, like the cheap place for competitors, but it's a fucking oven.
Is it? Yeah.
We were falling asleep, man.
I was in there, and I think I watched like maybe one game's worth of time in there, and it was too much, man. I was sweating something rough.
You don't understand. It was really bad, like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
Ooh. Yeah, it was definitely a little sticky in there, and not the good sticky either. It was just gross. So. Talk to us about the drafting a little bit here. Obviously, you are Glacius. You guys are going to be doing kind of a tri-lane again, the Magnus Glacius. Valkyrie lane up here on the top. You started 2 wards, Runes of Blight, and, of course, your 2 little Healies here. Why no Minor Totems?
I think Chalp wanted an extra regen.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you bought an extra set of Tangos?
Yep. And I saw Minor Totems as the least valuable. Because Glacius doesn't really need extra stats as much. I mean, there's enough mana, so...
Gotcha. And this ward placement here, you know, as we talked about with the last one, now that we're looking at the Hellborn ward pull, is it best to sort of put it in the middle there to give you some vision into the lane? Do you ever put it on the other side to get vision of the choke point here down by the river? Is this the pretty standard location for this kind of a thing?
Well, prior to the Dreamhack, I was trying to mix up my wards, so like... so if people wanted to watch my replays, I wasn't doing the exact same thing every game. I'd have to make people guess.
Okay.
There's a lot of mind games. Like, weeks up till Dreamhack, I was just doing the same wards, even in tournament matches, because I didn't want people to look at my replays and be like, oh, that's what Thunder does when everything's on the line.
Ah, okay. That's good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear, actually, that there were some mind games going on with that kind of stuff, because, again, I had the opportunity to talk to Nova for like an hour and a half on day 3, and we talked about all sorts of stuff throughout the event, and he told me that the 2 things that he's learned from the Dreamhacks that Fnatic has been to is that confidence and the ability to play mind games are kind of the 2 most important ingredients to having a successful team, and I think there's a good bit of truth to that. So it's, I guess, good to hear that you guys are sort of along the same mindset.
Yeah, there's no reason in competing if you don't believe you can win.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not saying winning is the end-all be-all, but you should at least think you can.
Right. Exactly, and that's what he said. He was like, that day I woke up and said to myself, "We're gonna win this tournament," even though you don't know that you're gonna win. But yeah, like just having that confidence of knowing that you're capable of it, at least, I guess, is really important. So anyhow, last game we saw what a really hardcore roaming Aluna is like, and we talked about that a lot, balancing that kind of stuff and how much time you spend in the jungle versus lane. This one's a lot different, as you actually have a lane presence here, especially because it's a straight tri-lane on tri-lane versus that last match where it was kind of a tri-lane on singleton Suicide Valkyrie. So what's the difference in playstyle here? What are you focusing on primarily in a situation like this?
Well, this isn't really what we wanted to do. Like, going into the game, I was like, alright, let's just not let them farm. We have double range, and they're worried about dying. So we kind of went away from our laning idea, and then because we got greedy, we thought we could get kills. We ended up feeding.
Yeah, definitely up here. Bobo picks up the Bloodlust, and it's funny that I choose this game because I watched one match from you guys in the LAN Center, and this is actually the one match that I did watch. So it's kind of funny. Now that we're watching it, I'm like, oh, I remember that. I actually remember B-Kid right there yelling, like, no, switch, and he didn't happen. So you guys start off at kind of a rocky start here. You are the lone survivor of the engage. That aside from this particular game, in a tri-lane scenario where you have those two range, the triple stun, what is the goal of Glacius there? I mean, are you there to just harass nonstop? Is your primary goal to deny creeps? Is it about lane control? Break down some of the thought process behind your actions.
We should have just AFK farmed the lane. It's risky to take a fight unless they put themselves in a throwing, like they either just give us a free kill. We should not have gone for kills at all in a situation like this. But yeah, I mean, so basically once that happened, mistakes were made. We're like, okay, this lane's lost. I'm gonna go elsewhere and see what I can do.
Okay, and so going elsewhere, what is your plan here? Right now, you seem to be just aimlessly wandering about the jungle. And why is that so?
Well, I'm gonna gank bottom. I don't remember what I was doing at the ruin. Maybe I was just checking the ruin or checking at ruin or something. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, now it looks like, looking at that in-game timer, of course, going to go protect the bottom rune here. And I think in this situation, it actually does spawn bottom, and there it is. It does end up being an illusion rune. So in a situation where you're protecting the rune like that, why do you actually go and pick it up? Bubbles does have a full bottle in the mid. Is it just because it's an illusion rune and it's not that valuable to him? When do you guys decide on the difference of you picking up the rune or just protecting it for your mid?
It was Moon's decision. Like, I'm going the runes, just pick it up. I would assume his reasoning would be like, I have enough mana, I'd rather not lose experience, blah blah blah. I have a full bottle, I'm good. I don't really need it.
So it's just kind of on a case by case basis as far as when the mid makes that call, I guess is the way it is. So you go down to the bottom lane, set up actually a really easy gank onto My Nuts here, and Sandwraith only gets the assist. And again, is this one of these situations where you purposefully picked up that kill, or was it just that the nature of that engage that you were the one to get the last hit?
It was just about getting the kill. Just
whoever gets it is more important than sitting around and waiting. And that's actually another important thing to bring up. We've seen times where the team's trying to give the kill to their support or trying to give it to their carry or whoever, and everyone backs off, and then oops, the guy gets away with 2 hit points to spare or whatever because everyone thinks someone else is going to get the last hit. Is there a way of monitoring that, preventing that from happening? I mean, is it all just about communication with the team saying, okay, B-Kid, go, make sure you get this last hit, or
it's about
I don't know. Talk to us about that a little bit.
It's like, do you know where they are? Like, do you know where your opponents are on the mini map? Do you know if this hero has any ability to escape? Can you keep chasing him? Do you have any more stuns that you can if you really need to? Stuff like that. So it's like you never want to let a kill get away, but obviously when you can, you want to get the kill to whoever you deem most valuable to get it.
I see, and that definitely makes sense. And in this game, you're obviously doing a lot of walking around here and actually going to walk back to the well, and I imagine you're going to pick up a port and end up going somewhere here. No, just going to wander your way up to the top lane. So it feels like, just by looking at having the camera locked on Glacius in this game, that you're not having a very effective use of your time. Just as you're spending a lot of time running around, not stacking, not pulling. Like right now, you ran back to the well and are running back to the mid. Would you say that's the case, or is that just the nature of this game, that you're not needed in the lane, there aren't any really easy gank opportunities?
Well, I needed to heal last time, and I can't really do anything top. That lane's still lost. I mean, they have way more levels on us right now. That lane's what just get what can they get from there?
Hmm.
And I mean, well, I kill middle, but
Yeah.
when you're behind, like early in the early game, stacking really isn't the answer to that.
Hmm.
Usually the answer is trying to get recuperating kills in other lanes,
Oh, okay.
because if we lose a tri lane and if we get our two solo heroes big, then we're fine. And I think I accomplished that this game.
I see. All right, so once that tri lane's gone, it's all about just looking for those other opportunities. And obviously, I mean, back-to-back kills on my nuts playing Tempest is absolutely huge. So you sitting 2-0-0 is definitely good news. And in that last game, when we talked about items a little bit, you mentioned, if this is generally what I'm going to do, and if I get a good start, I might do something else. Is this a game that's an example of Glacius getting a really good start? And if so,
Yeah,
how's that going to influence your item choices in this match
because I
compared
went
to
boots first.
regular? So in most cases, you would end up going power or mana battery before the boots.
And a lot of times I'll sacrifice the TP scroll
Hmm.
because, in my opinion, it's a lot about the time it's just like knowing where you have to be, being at the right places at the right times, not having the TP scroll. But in this game, I can afford to have the TP scroll. It's not like I'm cashed or I have enough money.
Hmm. And that's definitely good news for a humble Glacius such as yourself. I want to ask you about boots because we've seen a lot of variation between people playing Glacius and getting Striders versus Ghost Marchers versus Steam Boots. Is there one that you prefer out of those three? Do you ever alter between the three based on situation? Is there a general rule of thumb about which boots you should get in which situations?
Well, if you follow Fnatic, they get Striders a lot. Now, if you think about what their playstyle was like 4-on-1 with Era, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of times they're setting up kills in and they're ganking or stacking, or they're stacking, protecting their carry, or getting kills. And Striders make sense. They usually their heroes aren't very strong, but other than their one carry, so like they don't really need the boots that make them stronger in the team fight or stuff like that.
Hmm.
So they get the boots that allow them to support their carry, or and stack faster. So they help him, they support him and get to him faster, and they're able to stack more for him.
Hmm. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear how that fits into Fnatic's playstyle. Which do you prefer? What do you think fits in with tdM's playstyle the best?
I prefer Ghost Marchers just because your ability to get in and out of a fight relatively it's pretty nice with Ghost Marchers. You can just be like go in, cast your spells, maybe get a few right clicks off, and get out.
Hmm. And so I would assume that the logical explanation for Steam Boots is just against a really bursty team, like maybe a team that has a pretty farmed Pebbles or something. Steam Boots may be better for those additional stats.
If That's a tricky question though. Like, so Steam Boots and support are only good if you are actually getting items, and like if you're gonna get enough items to survive the burst. Like
Hmm.
if the difference is like having Steam Boots and having Ghost Marchers but having nothing else, Steam Boots really aren't doing anything for you because if you still get hit by the spell, you're still gonna die from the Pebbles combo.
Hmm.
Whereas if you things like Ghost Marchers, you can stay out that longer and get in faster, or you can dodge more spells easier because you're moving faster.
I see. So, is there any situation that you can think of, or certain hero combination, or anything like that, where Steam Boots definitely make more sense as a general rule of thumb?
Like, if you think you can get 1200 HP with, like, a Steam Boots and a Magic Armor, and, like, then sure, go for it. That's really good against the Pebbles. But in most situations, for me at least, I can't do that, so I tend to stick for, like, the mobility.
Hmm. Okay, that makes sense actually. Where if you can hit that certain threshold, it's worth it. But if you can't quite get there, then
It's useless.
you might as well just go for the mobility because you're going to get one shot anyway. So at least you have the opportunity to prevent it from happening. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It is a good way to um, go about thinking about it. When do you start focusing on stacking ancients? Because obviously we're only looking at the early parts of these replays, and now we're about 10 minutes in, and there's been no ancients action yet. What's a pretty good benchmark for when you start paying more attention to the ancients? And actually, our Hellborn team has already stacked theirs at least once, and you guys are yet to do that. So where
It's really
where
it's
does
really
that fall?
game to game. Like, say if I'm in the middle lane, or if like if I'm like in the lane that's close to the ancients, I'll usually triple stack them by 6 minutes or 8 minutes in. But in this game, I'm like roaming around and I don't really worry about stacking that much. So it's more about just getting the kills and shit. So
Mhm.
it's not big emphasis. But you see, like I was stacking the pole because I'm underleveled. Like I mean, okay, I'm not underleveled, but there's things I could get myself stronger by getting the pull. It's free experience. It denies the other team a lane, stuff like that. So, like, if you're playing a passive game, usually the pull is something you always want to be utilizing.
I see. And, I mean, with a hero like Sandraith, you're going to be playing relatively passive as well. And actually, it looks like here, right around the 12-minute mark is when you're going to start stacking these Ancients.
Yeah, it's more like where I am on the map. Like, remember what I said earlier about making yourself useful.
Right.
So there's like 8 different things you can do to make yourself useful. It just depends where you are in the game, and it's your job as a support player to make that decision.
So, of those 8 things, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but what's sort of of course, it's all general and changes from game to game, but sort of the order of importance as far as the things of your options as a support player at any time in a game. What's the list in order of highest priority kind of to lowest priority?
I mean, see, the thing is, it depends what strategy you're going for. Like, if you're going for like an aggressive strategy, obviously you're going to set up kills more important than stacking. But you could even argue that since you're going for like a defensive strategy, you still want to set up the kills to give your carry they get the pressure off of them. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, obviously warding is obviously the most important thing ever because, like I said earlier, you can't make decisions without information.
Right, so warding is top tier, and then, okay, so that makes sense, though, depending on the strategy. If it's a strategy based on aggression and doing damage early on, then it's better to be aggressive, but if you're playing sort of a strategy more like this, where you have a Sandraith and then a semi-carry Valkyrie, you can kind of sit back, stack the Ancients a little bit, and just sort of put yourself in a position to set up ganks if the other team overcommits in any specific area. Sort of like you mentioned, because of that early farm, you have the luxury of a Homecoming Stone, so that gives you that additional mobility that you kind of otherwise wouldn't have if you didn't have that strong start.
Well, like, I'd also say the other team has the better late games, just...
Alright, so I think we're back. I believe that was my internet that took a little dump there for a second. So hopefully we're back. You guys may need to reset the stream if you haven't already. Sender, are you there?
Hello?
Hello. Yeah,
Oh?
I think that was me. I think my internet
No, I
took a dump.
think it was me.
Well, my stream reset, so I think it was me also. It could have been both of us.
Huh. Okay, whatever. I don't really care.
That was really weird. Maybe Skype just overloaded both of our networks. I don't know. The stream cut out, so that's upsetting. Man, now the VOD's going to be a 2-parter. Ah, man.
Alright. Are you still on stream?
Yes.
Alright, so this game, it's about getting our items that we need to be able to win the game. So it's like getting like Sandraith his mock, right? But the thing is, we still need to like not give ground to them. You still can't you still have to punish them for when they make mistakes or stuff like that. You still have to make moves that get you in a better position. Right. But still, our main goal is to get Sandraith mock.
So just to reiterate, so for you, does that mean you're generally going to be playing kind of a more defensive Glacius here that's a little more focused on stacking than setting up kills? Like you said, if they make a mistake, of course, capitalize, but all things equal, it's about stacking here?
I think my playstyle usually is I don't think I've got to stack, like it's usually like I'm going to ward, then I'm going to stack on my way going somewhere else. Or like I want to set up a kill, maybe I'll stack on the way there, stack on the way back. Obviously, if it's like we're doing like this big 4-on-1 strat with Era or like another carry, then obviously I'll put emphasis on stacking. But usually it's more just like setting up one kill. It's usually just like doing everything at once. And just being as effective as I can at any given moment.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I actually had a question here about the difference in support playstyle. If you have a hero kind of like Mage Bane or the Dark Lady or Sandraith versus if you have a more aggressive pushing lineup. So it's good that we covered some of that stuff.
Well, just one more thing like that is you have to realize even with our heroes, if we're setting up a kill, Sandraith can be there at any moment. He needs to be there. So like if we get a good pick off, that means we can take a tower. So being aggressive is also a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good news also. So one of the last things I want to ask you about, which isn't too pertinent to what we're seeing on the screen here with you stacking in the jungle and picking up some kills, but do you have any kind of advice for in lane where maybe more of a traditional 2-on-2 where you have what would be a babysitter, Glacius on Demented Shaman or whatever it happens to be? are there any tricks to harassing slash babysitting if you have someone sort of harassing, babysitting you back? How do you come out ahead in that babysitting battle?
I mean, I would say that this is probably my weakness as a player, but I mean, obviously I know how to babysit, but it's my weakness. Anyways, it's usually about just dealing as much damage as you can without taking as little as possible, and taking kills when you can, but try not to take risks, because obviously you don't want to lose the lane. But if you can get a kill, go for it.
Right.
And then in terms of being in the lane or outside the lane, it usually depends what hero you are. Like if you're Andromeda and you're you're babysitting a melee hero, or you're filing with Andro, you really don't offer anything in the lane. So usually you're on the side to scare them. It's more of a kill lane. Whereas if you're running a Glacius or Aluna with another hero, it's more of it's usually a farming lane. You do have kill potential, don't get me wrong, but you have great harassment as well, and you have the good animations for attacking and denying and stuff. So you can just play the farming game, and you'll get ahead over the 10 minutes you're in the lane. That way.
I see. That again makes pretty solid sense from a support perspective here. I see this little team fight with Sender picking up some kills, and I think you actually end this game with a pretty solid KDR. And now you're sitting 4-1-3, and this game looking pretty good for you guys. So I think that kind of wraps it up here for this replay for the most part. And again, unless you have any other points or comments you want to make about support Glacius that I missed?
I think actually just with the Glacius in general is, they made that change to his ultimate a while ago with the mana. That's actually something that's been tripping me up a lot. I just wanted to comment on that.
It's more mana now, right?
Yeah. It's just I've been playing the hero so long, and I'm just used to being able to cast all my spells freely. And it's just, that messes you up on just your mindset, Right. You're just so used to doing something, and then you can't do that all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just you're just used to it being costing one value, and now that it's different, it's just situations oh crap, I used to be able to do this, but now I'm stuck out of mana. So
right. So sometimes you have to make a decision. Well, do I want to use that other spell, or do I want to go for my ultimate? The guaranteed spell, or do I want to think, I can get this off, and etc.
Right. So one of the last things I want to ask you about has to do with item preference, and items like aura-based items like Abyssal Skull versus Gnome's Wisdom. What do you think about those two items? I've been saying for the past couple months now that Abyssal Skull is one of the most underutilized items in the game. Do you think that's true? And from a support player, is it just unrealistic to expect support players to be able to farm that up in the average game?
I think I popularized that item, to be honest.
We've definitely been seeing it more, but we still don't see it as much as I think we could.
I talk to a lot of the players, and a lot of people listen to me, so I think that's because it is good. It's not always the best item, but it's pretty good. Armor makes your team stronger, pushing's easier, lifesteal for melee carry, stuff like that.
No, I think it's great. One of the problems, though, it's not really a first item, and there's a lot of games where supports kind of farm up that first core item, then by the time the game ends, they're still working on that second core item. Is Abyssal Skull, is it ever worth it to just go boots, power supply, straight into Abyssal Skull instead of your tablet or your Astro?
No. It's more of a mid-game or late-game item. Obviously, it's good for pushing early on because of the bonus damage. But it's also, it is also good for fighting on, but there are more effective items earlier on, like Astro because of the heal, or Pushbook because of the positioning factor.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. And what about Gnome's Wisdom? Is that a solid support item? Are there opportunities that when
it's pretty
Gnome's
trashy.
Wisdom should be used at all? Have you ever picked one up? I don't know that I've ever seen you with Gnome's Wisdom.
Yes, it is cheaper, but it's just not good for a support hero. It's okay. It's good when you're snowballing on an intelligence hero because it gives you more mana and stuff like that. But it's pretty shit for a supporter.
All right. All right. Gnome's Wisdom in general, not just from the context of a support. Do you think it's an item that we should see more? Maybe it needs a little buff, maybe a little nerf. What do you think about the item in general?
Usually, you'll see it when a hero's snowballing because it's cheap and it lets them farm more. and it gives them good mana, stuff like that.
The only thing that really comes to mind is like No Tail on Polywog Priest. I've seen him
Yeah,
pick it up a
or
few times.
Torturer, stuff like that.
Yeah, and Torture
And
as
usually
well.
they're snowballing, and it makes them farm faster. It's like an investment, you know.
Hmm.
You could either buy a push book or you could buy Enormous Wisdom, which will make you farm faster. You'll have to go back to base less, so that means you get more creeps, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Well, definitely makes sense. Any other comments? Any other thoughts here about support? Because I'm pretty much out of questions, good sir. I don't have too much else on my list of things to cover. Any other thoughts, word of advice, general things to those aspiring young support players? Any just words of encouragement for those struggling to support 1500 Mage Veins?
No, because I never really have that situation.
I mean, in your opinion, I mean, is it worthwhile solo queuing and playing support? Is that one of those things that it's more of it's not worth the headache unless you're queuing with 5 people where you can set up a team to make supports make sense?
I mean, you usually do need a support player, but that's something I wouldn't do. I mean, if you enjoy it, go for it. But maybe if you want to play with friends instead and do the same and still do it, then that would be another way. If you just want to get better at the game, I would say support's not really the best role to work your way up.
I think that's a fair statement. It's hard to carry your team as a support player in a pub game.
Well, it's also just harder to get better at the game as a support player because I wouldn't say TMN reflects how a game progresses as like. So progressing as a support player in a TMM game is not the same thing as progressing in support as in a real game. Like you're not doing the same things at every minute that you would in a real game. Whereas carry, it's more about it's still the same thing about like taking towers, getting kills when they're given, kill creeps, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's sort of a different mindset that doesn't mesh with all of the other roles, I suppose. It's kind of a good way to describe it. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Do you have any closing comments, shoutouts, Mr. Sender? Where can people find your stream, social networking, anything like that?
Oh yeah. You can find me on Facebook at tdm or facebook.com/tdm.sender. I will start hopefully streaming when we start streaming again. I have to set it up. Blah blah blah. We'll be streaming again when tournaments are like. Information is released. We're kind of out of the cooler master tournament, so there's really no practice for us to be scrimming at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Twitter, I think it's just at tdM Sender, and then shout out to Razor who support our team tradeMark eSports.
I did see tradeMark eSports has a shiny new website that's live.
Yeah, that went live last Saturday, I think it was.
Yeah, I saw Z-Freak checking it out at the hotel. Looked pretty awesome.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job with it. Shout out to Lisa, Trump's girlfriend, for coding it.
Wow, Lisa did the whole thing. That's good. Good to hear as well. So very cool. Well, I certainly wish you guys the best of luck. I'm sure once more tournaments come about, now that Dreamhack's done, we'll see plenty of tdM. I'm looking forward to lockpicking, man. I hope it works out well. I'll be curious to see how it impacts drafting on a competitive level, but looking forward to it as well. It was always a pleasure, though. Thank you for taking the time out to chat with me a little bit today, Mr. Sender. So, everyone else, that does wrap up breakdown number 20. Like I said, we do have plenty of ideas for upcoming breakdowns. I really want to do kind of a shout-out to team managers, kind of a breakdown, get a couple of guests. And I'd actually love to get the tdM manager on here, Alex, just to talk about some of the stuff at Dreamhack, some of the struggles. I feel like team managers are a little bit underloved, or at least underappreciated by the public for the amount of work they put in to help the team. So I think it might be cool to get some of their perspective. What do you think of your team manager, Mr. Alex?
Oh, I like him. He was a nice guy that I hang out, talk to, etc. at Dreamhack.
Yeah, definitely. I had a blast, especially on the last day in Gothenburg. I had a blast having a few beers and chatting with him, and I think I had the most fun talking to players when I was sitting outside talking to Alex, Moon, and B-Kid. That was an exciting conversation.
What was it, after the Twitch party or something?
No, it was the day after. It was in the hotel near the
Tuesday?
airport.
Or Wednesday? Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah.
B-Kid he is a baller, man. He's such a thug.
Well, he got swag for a reason.
Hell yeah, dude. It's sick. It's just a funny that It's just a very diverse mix of personalities. The four of us out there all talking about nerd stuff. I mean, there was this one like really crazy lady from North Carolina that was eavesdropping, and she was just like, well, "I'm sorry, but what's a moon meander?" And we told her to Google it, and she was just like, "Oh wow, $60,000." And then she was like, "Moon meander, I'm gonna follow you on Twitter." It was pretty creepy, man. We ended up talking to her for like 3 hours that night.
What the?
Dude,
What?
this lady, man, she ended up getting really trashed, and she was just like chain smoking cigarettes out there, just like talking to us, and it got a little like,
What did I miss?
dude, you missed a lot. She eventually scared away Moon and B Kid, man. Like she kept talking, and they were just like, all right, fuck this. I'll finish my beer. I'm going back inside. And then more like S2 people came out, and like we're having a conversation, and she's just eavesdropping, and then she's just like, take me to your leader, and it's just like, oh god.
Wait. Was this at the Gothenburg Hotel when y'all the S2 people were in the lobby or something?
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys were in the lobby. I went to sleep. I would have came down if I knew, you know?
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. They were watching the basketball game, dude. You should have met this crazy lady. She was ridiculous. She asked if she could touch my hair, and people ask me that sometimes, and I usually just say, I don't care. It feels as an interesting texture, So she starts like touching it, and then she starts like rubbing the back of my neck, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And then she's just like, what do your parents think about your dreads? What does your daddy think? Tell me what your daddy thinks. And I was just like, all right, lady, this is getting really weird. And I said that to her, and then I just kind of scooted back, and she was just like, all right. And then she starts like tugging on him. And she was a creepster deluxe, dude. It got real serious real quick. But
sounds like you had a nice time.
Yeah, shit like that, dude. That's what I remember from DreamHack. Not the video games. The crazy lady from North Carolina that happened to be in Gothenburg.
I mean, all I can think of is the video games, but like that's just me because I was playing. You were there casting away.
Yeah, long hours. So I really hope the Dreamhound VODs get up soon. They should be up soon, guys. I know some people have been PMing me about it. It's not under my control at all. That's all on the production team. Obviously there were some lag issues, and I know some of the VODs there were some sort of difficulties. But I don't know what to say other than I hope they get up soon because I have no way to assist in that process. So
are you sure they're not up? I mean, they're not on Honcast, but I mean, I watched our matches against Fnatic.
They are on Honcast. All right, well, I was just
no, they're not on Honcast. But I mean, I found my matches against Fnatic and I watched them.
There are some DreamHack games up, but not all of them. And looks like right now there's only 9 matches posted on the DreamHack site, and then the 2 interviews with the teams. And Sender, I guess what did you think about the team interview you guys did?
It was pretty cheesy.
Oh, come on, you guys were going baller status, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we did what we were asked to do: be cocky, going cheesy, and we did it. Okay.
Dude, you guys look badass. Don't worry, man. I liked it. When I saw it, I was just like, all right. If I was the owner of tdM, I'd be pretty happy with that video right now. You guys looked like you knew what was going on.
Actually, you want to know my biggest accomplishment at DreamHack?
Yes, I do.
Making Nova mad.
What did you do to make him mad?
Him not being able to counter my aggressive ward. I mean, like, it was a pretty big disappointment getting 4th place again, but, it wasn't really about the money to me. I mean, obviously I play this game to make money, but, like, until there's it's not enough money, so right now I care more about the pride and just having fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
So that's why that was my biggest accomplishment, was making Nova mad, because he couldn't counter my ward. He killed him like 4 times because of it.
Well, that is definitely coming from a player like Nova, that definitely has to be a bit of a confidence booster. I would be happy with that as well. But anyhow, guys, I think that is going to do it for us. Unfortunately, the VOD for this breakdown is going to be split into 2 parts because either Twitch took a dump or my internet took a dump or a combination of both. Probably me. Maybe a tree fell down since I live in the middle of the woods. But that is going to do it for Support 101. Again, big shout out to you, Mr. Sender, for making it possible, and plenty more breakdowns on the way. So, per usual, guys, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and we'll catch you maybe later on this weekend with another breakdown. If it's not this weekend, then sometime early in the week. Of course, the Thursdays and Sundays breakdown schedule has really not been followed recently, so just follow all social networking at Facebook, ZyoriTV, at Twitter, ZyoriTV. to stay up to date with all things related. So until then, see you later.